Thanks, Harvard, for giving me this opportunity. Before I go into my research, let me bring you a little bit back to not too long ago when I was a little kid. So, when I was young, I loved playing with cars. I used to have a huge collection of Matchbox and Hot Wheels cars. I even have a garage that has elevators on it for them to park. As I got older, my toys got bigger. I started playing with remote control cars, not just the battery ones, but even the gasoline ones that run from 70 miles per hour. My neighbors weren't thrilled, but I was having the time of my life. My passion for cars continued to grow. I started subscribing to all the car major magazines. I would read all the car reviews, soaking up the details, the fastest cars from 0 to 60, the biggest engine V8 and V12. I even dreamt of starting my own car magazine that I can drive those cars myself. So when the time got to my legal age, I immediately went to get my driver's license. I just couldn't wait to sit behind the wheel and start driving. I was very grateful that my parents got me a car soon, and I started driving with my friends around. During college years, I would go on road trips, driving across states, or even up to Canada. In fact, I always tell people that I'm very good at converting miles to kilometers or gasoline to liters just because of my driving between the two countries. About 10 years ago, I got an opportunity to finally work in the automotive industry. I was developing an ADAS camera, advanced driving assistance system, that detects what's happening on the road and then alert drivers based on computer vision and sensor data. With that opportunity, I started thinking what else we can do with data coming from drivers, vehicles, or external conditions such as road conditions and weather. I started developing more applications, including a pothole detection that was featured in multiple publications. And when I started hearing more about sustainable transportation, I wanted to learn more. In my master's program here at Harvard in sustainability, I wrote my first paper related to the unsustainable sales of vehicles in Bangkok. For those who have been to Bangkok, you know how bad the traffic is. It's considered one of the worst in the world. To be exact, Bangkok ranks 108th out of 116 cities of being the world's worst traffic. Mumbai being the worst. Now, in Bangkok, you cannot have more than 2 meetings a day because you can easily be stuck in traffic for multiple hours, even if those meetings are just miles away. I started understanding that it's not traffic that is a problem. In Bangkok, car sales has continued to grow, and it's affect also the quality of life of people as well as the environment. After writing that paper, I really wanted to know what else cities face when it comes to vehicles. I started to read more about the impact on humans' health, especially on cities and their people. It's not just frustration in traffic. When people are exposed to pollution coming from vehicles, it affects their health. In fact, numerous studies show that mobile combustion, the burning of fuel and gasoline in cars, have a direct effect to human health problems. The burning of fuel as well as the small particles coming from vehicles to PM10 and PM12 at 2.5 has a direct relationship to human health problems. I started understanding more about these health problems, and I realized that different engine types and different fuels have different problems as it depends on the miles per hour as well as the MPG. So I started thinking what else we can do with that. And I started looking into the other things as well as the calculations coming from it because we can now mathematically calculate the human health problems coming from vehicles. As someone who is fascinated about data, I wanted to learn more about that. Instead of reading about 0 to 60, I started reading about MPG as well as emission factors. I actually went to the EPA website here in the US, as well as the Ministry of Transportation site in Japan, and started pulling all the past 15 years of car data. What I wanted to do is to analyze how cars were built 10, 15 years ago compared to the recent ones. And during this time, I got a fascinating opportunities to compete in a Porsche Data Cup, a competition run by one of the most iconic car brands in the world. In that competition, I developed a sustainable driving applications that connects directly to the Porsche vehicles. And guess what? I won the nationwide competition. With that achievement, I started to believe that we can actually do more with what the cars are being done today. Now, to me, health problems is one of the major things that I've been thinking all the time. I started reading more about health impacts that vehicles have on the people. As mentioned, we can now calculate the life loss based on the number of vehicles on the road. This to me is very daunting. A few years ago, my wife had some major health conditions. And since then, we have been very health conscious. At the same time, our daughter was born. So for me, trying to find out how we can do better with vehicles on the road, something that I'm passionate about, that has a direct impact on our health, is very important. A little bit more about myself. I was born and raised in major cities. I have always been living in cities. So to me, I understand very much how cities operate. It's not easy for any cities to just go and say, hey, get rid of all the cars, or ask people to convert their cars to cleaner ones. For cities, just like any corporations, they need to budget. They need to balance their budget. They need to ensure that any money goes to any projects has a direct contribution to society. In other words, cities will be more willing to do anything if there's a financial return as well as contribution to society. Therefore, in my study, I wanted to look at the impact of vehicles as well as energy sources on cities based on how these could be mitigated. I wanted to study the magnitude of the benefits that cities can get by converting the gasoline vehicles to hybrid or other cleaner vehicles such as electric vehicles, as well as changing the charging sources from fossil fuel to renewable energy. For me, I understand that if I can incorporate the financial benefits, then the economic information will be the driver of this study. For my study, I chose Japan as my case study for a couple of reasons. One, Japan is one of the car manufacturing hubs in the world. Second, Japan has some of the very diverse cities, with megacities such as Tokyo with close to 10 million people and lots of cars, as well as minor cities with smaller populations. This diversity of cities allows me to have a different information from a diverse group of urban settings. In my studies, I have a few hypotheses. One, I anticipate that cleaner cars will allow us to reduce emissions by 95%, especially if we go with 100% electric vehicles. I also anticipate that in these studies, we can reduce human costs down to 70%. Also, bigger cities will have a higher impact. At the same time, cities can see huge financial benefits when it comes to the reduce of health problems. Now let's take a look at what Japan currently is. So transportation is a major emissions issues in Japan. It's 18.5%. And within the space, almost 50% of these emissions comes from passenger vehicles. So definitely passenger vehicles is one of the major contributors in this country. Now in my studies, I looked at the top 10 populated cities, ranging from Tokyo, Yokohama, Osaka, which has millions of people, down to other smaller cities like Kawasaki and Kyoto. In my studies, I looked at 3 scenarios. The first scenario was, what if we have a high proportion of hybrid vehicles as well as electric vehicles? In my second scenario, I looked at charging these vehicles with renewable energy. And in my third scenario, let's imagine 100% electric vehicles with 100% renewable charging, renewable energy to charge them. The results was quite amazing. In Tokyo, even in just converting a high proportion of vehicles to hybrid and electric, we can have an annual life savings of 53 people. And if we go all electric, we can even save 632 lives. Again, we are not talking about just these 632 lives. We are talking about families of thousands of people that will be impacted as well. Now, even in smaller cities, we can see some very good results. Cities like Kyoto and Saitama, we can at least save 3 people. And again, we are talking about family members that are also affected as well. If we zoom in Tokyo, we can reduce emissions from 16% to 97%. At the same time, as mentioned, we can save lives from 53 to 632 lives. But the key is the economic benefits. Tokyo can save up to $4 billion if they decide to go all electric with renewable energy. Even in smaller cities, we can have a huge savings ranging from $18 million to $200 million. So again, you can see that the diversity is there, but all cities can benefit from changing to cleaner vehicles and cleaner energy sources. Now, my studies was based on Japan, based on cities in Japan, but it can be used for multiple cities as well. The same principles, the same science behind the calculations apply to any cities. As I said, some cities will have different results. Some cities might have a bigger impact, but ultimately, all cities will be able to benefit from this. My aim for my studies is to hope to create the actionable steps that cities can use and start leveraging on the information that we have created and allowing them to create healthier lives for their people in their society. Now, before I leave, let me share with you some fun facts. I live in San Francisco, and in the 70s, George Lucas brought his team to San Francisco to learn about the kendo fights, which is a Japanese martial arts that I practice on a regular basis. And as many of us know, the way that he learned eventually converted to what we know as the Star Wars duel fights, lightsaber fights here in Star Wars. Now, I don't know if our cities will be same like the ones that we see in Star Wars, but I'm pretty sure if we work together, if we collaborate, if we think towards the better of our people, we can create a much better cities, cleaner energy, cleaner air, and better lives for people in all cities. Thank you very much.